I had a situation where I had a client who came to my office. A neighbor girl was making some allegations against him. So I take the case, and it was before charging, and we were able to get the prosecutor to not charge it because I said it didn't happen, blah, blah, blah. And I was able to kind of show that it didn't happen. Then he comes to me because he gets met by the FBI, and the FBI is talking to him about this, not insider trading, but antitrust with the big drug companies. So he's in trouble there. So we went and did the grand jury, and then all of a sudden he gets a DUI, and in this case, a major, vice president for a drug manufacturer. Then I get a call. He gets arrested for taking photos of girls at a gymnastics meet, and he had fake press credentials. I mean, he was a VP at a drug company. And he didn't have anybody in the performance. So they let him out, and he's at his home for hours in a gun standoff with the cops because his life was basically over as he saw it. And I was there at his house for 2 hours trying to talk him down, and it didn't work.
It was then that Brandon's disturbing motive was revealed. Brandon was heartbroken over a My Little Pony character. In his final Facebook post on April 15th, 2021, he wrote, "I hope that I can be with Applejack in the afterlife. My life has no meaning without her. If there's no afterlife and she isn't real, then my life never mattered anyway."
That's mental illness. That is just stone cold mental illness. Isn't that just sad? I mean, sure, it's funny to see that somebody might have a My Pony fetish. I mean, who doesn't really? I mean, I do. But to think that, if it's not real, my life doesn't mean anything anyway. Everybody's life means something, no matter who you are.
Bruce Rivers, he's the criminal lawyer. Bruce Rivers, he's the criminal lawyer. Bruce Rivers, he's the criminal lawyer. And what he do? And he's gonna react to all the self-snitching.
Hi, this is Bruce Rivers. Welcome to another fun-filled episode of Criminal Lawyer Reacts. I'm Bruce Rivers, your board-certified criminal defense lawyer, coming in with my pearl handle pistol cufflinks, so graciously gifted to me by Michael Rivers, our former content genius, and my son, God rest his soul. Today we're reacting to the mass killer who murdered over My Little Pony. You can't make up depraved shit. You just can't make it up because we see everything. The human condition knows no bounds, right? So this is an EWU Explore with Us. So they're kind of our partners. We share stuff back and forth. This episode is brought to you by CyberGhost. So before we get to this episode, here's a word from our sponsor, brought to you by me. With over 38 million users worldwide and over 20,000 positive reviews on Trustpilot, it's one of the best VPNs out there. So let me tell you a little bit about why you should be using CyberGhostVPN. CyberGhostVPN is an essential tool for protecting your identity and protecting your privacy. Plenty of eyes are watching you every time you go online. Even the incognito mode doesn't prevent those eyes from peering into what you're doing. So whether you're at your school, your work, or at home, your internet service provider can't do everything they can to prevent the release of your data. So your privacy is really important. And that's where CyberGhost comes in. Simply select one of their 100 locations before you start browsing on the internet. CyberGhost will encrypt and reroute all of your stuff through their safe servers. There is no way anybody, after you do this, they'll know about what your activity is online. So you can't be hacked. CyberGhost also unlocks geo-restricted games on over 40 streaming platforms like Netflix, Amazon, Disney+, and you can even score better deals online because of changing your virtual location. It works on all major devices, so whether it's Android, a Mac, iOS, and whatever your platform is, it works on all these different devices, and you can have up to 7 people protected at one time. So it makes it perfect for sharing with friends and family. So with our link in the description, it's just $2.03 a month. Plus you get 4 months for free. So, I mean, what is that, $24 a year? I mean, that's almost nothing to protect your identity and give you full access to everything you want, no matter where you are. There's even a 45-day guarantee, so you can get your money back if you're not totally satisfied. So you have absolutely nothing to lose. It's a great product. We definitely recommend it, and you can access it right now by just accessing the link in the description below. You can also help us to create more videos by helping our sponsor. So, I mean, and one of the things I've done with this actually is when I was overseas, I was able to watch the Vikings, so it's a no-brainer. All right, so let's get into this. Now, how long is this one? This one is 20 minutes. With my commentary, it might be about 35 minutes or so. So that's a decent amount of time. So tell you what, put us on pause, do a quick microwave thing of popcorn and get your white wine ready. No box wine. No fans of mine are drinking box wine. And if you're drinking box wine right now, throw it out. Get something decent. Just joking. Or a Stella Artois. That's what I drink.
Marion County 911. Is anybody experiencing flu-like or COVID-19 symptoms?
No, somebody's shooting in my hub. I'm at FedEx in Plainsville.
What's the address?
Now, people like to customize their vehicles. But sometimes our messages that we have can trigger the ire in another driver. So if you have a My Little Pony sticker on your car, be careful, because it does tend to trigger serial killers.
Shots everywhere.
Okay, what is the address?
The address is 8951 Mirabelle Road.
How many shots did you hear?
I don't know if anybody got shot. Can we go out down here? Can we run on way to the end and go out?
Don't go outside. Stay where you're safe.
8951.
You look at that picture of the damage to the window, just kind of tells you how much damage can be done with a firearm. The firearm technology really hasn't changed much, in a couple hundred years. You have a metal casing with gunpowder in it and a flint, and you strike it and it ejects a piece of lead or copper or whatever, and it tears through just about anything in its path.
Mirabelle Road.
I want you to stay with me, okay? Don't hang up, okay?
Shut that door!
When a young boy's mother notices his odd behaviors, intensifying year by year, she begins to worry about him. It began as a child when young Brandon Hole insisted on wearing 3 pairs of shorts at a time. That seemed innocuous enough until years later, when he developed an unusual obsession that soon went off the rails. This was the bedroom of that same boy. Only now.
That looks like a little girl's bedroom, doesn't it? My Little Pony. Oh, fuck.
Only now he was well into his teenage years, and his true love is depicted on the colorful posters hanging on these walls. The cartoon ponies you see are the central characters on a children's animated television series, My Little Pony. Most people would do anything for the love of their life, but few knew just how far Brandon was willing to go for his. And the ones that did know would soon wonder how they didn't see the horrific outcomes staring them right in the face.
So this brings up a really interesting issue when you think about it, because is it a parent's job to notice the red flags as somebody who would later turn out to be, a shooter, like at the school at Annunciation Church, just on the block from my house? This guy just shot through the windows. And he was trans. And not that trans has anything really to do with it, but mental illness does. What role does a parent play? Remember the one, I think it was in Michigan, where the mom and dad were charged and later convicted with manslaughter because they didn't stop and they not only didn't stop their child, they bought him a fucking gun and ammunition.
Hello?
Hi, can I speak with Brandon, please?
Oh, yeah, this is Brandon.
Brandon Hole was no stranger to tragedy. In this phone call with police, you'll quickly learn how his demons began to develop at such an early age. His mother, Sheila, estimates he was only 4 years old as she describes the dramatic incident you're about to hear.
I mean, he'd, be real depressed one day and be like, I ought to just do what my dad did.
How did his dad kill himself?
So.
Okay. Did he find him or did he see that?
No, he was there when we got into a real bad argument, and his dad said that, hey, whatever, if you leave with the kids, I'm going to myself, and I said, go ahead. Okay. He was, I think, 4 there.
And then he does. I can tell you this. We lost Michael's mom and Michael never got over it. He lost a buddy just never got over it. If you looked up at his wall, he had pictures of people that had themselves. And I don't know if he killed himself or not. I know he died of a drug overdose, and we pulled him out of fucking ER after ER and ICU after ICU. But, that really messes a kid up. Michael was 6 years old when his mother died, and she hit herself in the mouth with a .357. And it's tough, when you hear about this. And we have to cover some of this up because otherwise YouTube does some weird thing. So if you hear a beep, that's why. Because if you talk about certain topics, they say it's age restricted, and we don't want to do that. To hear that from his mother about his, you can hate your spouse, but your kid's going to love the spouse. You know what I mean? So you don't say negative shit about the other parent, even if you can't stand them, and the two of you are split. Hold them in high regard, at least in front of your child. You want to go to the bar and talk shit with your friends, fine. But in front of your child, that child loves, that person. So you should never put that hate in between you and your spouse and your child. The kid gets screwed up.
It seemed this haunting memory would follow Brandon everywhere he went for the rest of his life. Before long, Sheila would see his struggles start to manifest in unusual behaviors, including his insistence on wearing 3 pairs of shorts at a time, the way he would rock back and forth as he watched television, and how if his routine tasks were interrupted, the whole sequence would begin again. He was eventually diagnosed with obsessive-compulsive disorder. Sensing something was off, Sheila took her troubled son to Barrington Health Center in Indianapolis. But there she would learn there was more going on than she ever knew. The first visit in 2011, when Brandon was 9, would prove to be his first of many. But with every visit, the outcomes grew worse and worse. And ultimately, it all culminated in some of the most terrorizing moments ever caught on camera. Less than a year after being diagnosed with a bevy of disorders, including disruptive behavior disorder, anxiety, obsessive-compulsive disorder, and depression,
And when you're uneducated about this kind of stuff, in other words, you're not a professional, and most parents aren't, I wasn't. And you don't know what to do when you see these behaviors. Do you sweep them under the rug? Do you go heavy-handed? Do you be gentle? Do you take him to a professional? It's hard to know exactly what the right course is.
Brandon's behaviors would soon become much more aggressive. Thanks to his ever-increasing temper, his mother took him back for another visit 1 year later. As it turned out, his mother's fears were no exaggeration, and the medical records are damning evidence that prove it. From excessive lying to disrespectful behavior, Brandon's temper was now only part of a growing list of concerns. But for Brandon, it was just the beginning. It's May of 2013. Brandon is 11. A police officer was dispatched to the home Sheila and Brandon shared with Sheila's boyfriend, Keith Larson. According to Keith, he and Brandon were engaged in a water fight, and when Keith sprayed him with the garden hose, Brandon flew into an unexpected rage. He'd locked himself in the bathroom where he proceeded to destroy items inside. Sheila alleged that she picked the lock, after which Brandon left the bathroom and Sheila became his target. That's when Brandon snapped. He punched and slapped Sheila in the face multiple times, kicked her in the legs, and bit her on the forearm. She followed as he ran for the kitchen and grabbed 2 table knives out of a drawer, then, in a mad scramble, charged at his own mother.
That is some scary shit. When you have a child that's that violent, it's hard to know what to do. mean, do you fight violence with violence? Well, certainly you have to protect yourself, but it's just hard to know what to do.
He trapped her in the family room and wouldn't allow her to leave. It seemed like something unthinkable was about to happen. But just when she thought there was no escape, police arrived in the nick of time, and the madness for now came to an end. Somehow, Sheila only sustained a small wound to her right forearm, but her fears about her son's behavior leading up to this point had been all but confirmed. The incident ended in Brandon receiving several months of probation. After that incident,
you look at what Jeffrey Dahmer did. You know, he started out with animals and then went on and on and on. And you know what he did, right? That's different than this. This is rage. This is internal rage. Maybe it's attachment disorder, or maybe it's, you know, like they said, obsessive compulsive. Whatever the disorder is, it is. And for some things, there's no fucking treatment for it. You know, like narcissistic personality disorder. There's no treatment for that. You're just an asshole that nobody wants to be around.
That incident with his mother, everything continued in the same direction. And every year, Brandon would ascend another step on that stairway to madness. He quit school in 2014 and never got beyond the 6th grade level. He stayed home, his depression ever present, and isolated from the world, worsening his condition. It seemed to
being isolated is probably the worst thing that can happen. You know, I got him through college, you know, and he had like a 3.6 GPA or something like that, 3.5. I mean, he did shitty his first semester, got a 2.5 his first semester, but from there on, he got sober and he was a 4.0 from there on. But then COVID hit and he was isolated and he just quit his 3rd year law school. I mean, and then he started doing more and more drugs, and you know how that ended. You know, so when you have this isolation, it is never good.
Manifest in his chilling search history. You've already learned about his obsession with My Little Pony, but while left alone, Brandon had been researching something far more sinister. In 2015, Brandon was assessed by the Riley Children's Foundation. His search history included an obsessive interest in mass shootings. He told the assessor that, quote, "I feel bad for the victims, the families." When asked if he could put himself in the shoes of the perpetrators, he denied it, saying, "I don't want to waste my time doing something like that. It's a hassle," and that he wouldn't want to cause families any trauma. Chillingly, the assessor concluded that Brandon seemed to empathize with the victims, despite the fact that he also admitted to sharing memes and jokes about them with his friends.
So what you have here is you have somebody who's masking during a clinical interview, and he's another way. I mean, I'm really feeling this way, but I can't fucking tell, which is a level of sophistication that's taken into account in the criminal arena.
Then the day came when 18-year-old Brandon made the decision to follow through with something he'd planned to do for quite some time. It was March 2nd, 2020.
He was like, well, drive me to the gun store and I'll just look around. On the way to the gun store, we saw a sticker that said hashtag stop the life. And he's like, there's your sign. And I was like, okay, well, if you buy a gun, there's your sign. You know, I got to take that away from you. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, and he did buy it without bullets.
The store was out of ammunition that
How does he buy? How do you let him buy a gun? How do you let him do that?
day. That night, Sheila and her daughter devised a plan. The situation was far too perilous, and they couldn't just sit back and watch to see what became of it. They had to act. If not, Sheila feared, perhaps Brandon would follow through and take his own life, just as his father had done several years prior. Or something much, much worse. The following morning, they traveled to the Indianapolis Metropolitan Police Department and filed a case report telling of his troubled past and how he...
But here's what's going to happen. He hasn't done anything yet. You know, this is what he's saying he's going to do, but he hasn't done anything. And you can't conspire. If he said this to another person and they had a plan, you'd have a conspiracy. But you can't conspire alone.
How he planned to point his shotgun at police, thereby ensuring his death. Later that same day, on March 3rd, several officers and members of the Indianapolis Mobile Crisis Assistance Team, or MCAT, responded to Sheila's home. Upon entering, Brandon was placed in handcuffs, with the police report stating that Brandon had become quite anxious, and his main focus was ensuring that no one looked at his computer. What police would find on that computer would leave Sheila utterly shocked, with the search revealing extremist websites in his history. At this time, Brandon's gun was confiscated under Indiana's red flag law. When Brandon was taken to Eskenazi Hospital for further assessment, she hoped he'd be put on a 72-hour hold. But instead, somehow, he was in and out in under 2 hours.
So I took Michael to a hospital once, and he was there for about 24 hours or so. Nobody saw him. And he was in crisis. Nobody saw him. He was 15 years old. And he was crying, "Come get me, Dad," blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, has anybody seen him? And nobody had plans to see him. But he was safe in that environment. And it just pulls at your heartstrings when you see your child into a clinical setting like that. And in this case, the kid's probably sophisticated enough to know what to say by this time to the right people.
To Sheila's utter surprise, an emergency medicine doctor determined there was no diagnosis, and Brandon denied having any issues. What's more shocking, there's no record that indicates a formal psychological assessment was ever conducted on Brandon during this visit, despite Sheila's cries for help. A few days after the visit to Eskenazi Hospital, a detective contacted Sheila concerning his confiscated shotgun.
I just needed to talk to you about what happened with Brandon. My role in this is simply just to see if we're going to file a retention case. If they file a retention case, he would also be deemed to be a dangerous person, which only means that he wouldn't be able to purchase a firearm. This isn't a criminal record, and it's not, you can't even see it. Like if somebody were to search for criminal cases and stuff, these cases don't go into there because they're just civil.
You raise your kid and you worry if he misses a day of school. And this is well beyond that, because you want them to go through the normal course of things. I want you to go to a prom. I want you to have a girlfriend. I want you to play some sports. I want you to go to college. I want you to get married. I want you to have kids. I want you to have a good job, have a good car, have a good house, have a life. That's all we want for our children, right? And it's just so heartbreaking when you see the criminal mind developing in somebody like this.
Once they get filed, like if I needed to check on one, I can't even do it. I have to send an email to the prosecutor's office and ask them to look because they're the only ones that can access it. So to see what the status of it is.
Then when the FBI visited with Sheila the following month, they would unknowingly add fuel to the fire. An agent, along with another officer, visited Sheila's home and asked to meet with Brandon. When the agent asked Brandon what he planned to do with his life, Brandon replied that perhaps he could join the FBI. In response, the agent made it clear that wouldn't be an option for him. Perhaps this was the straw that broke the camel's back.
Bullshit. He was always going to do this. He was always going to be this way. That was not a serious answer. I mean, basically what it was him fucking with the FBI.
It would be exactly 1 year to this very day that Brandon would unleash the inner demons he'd been harboring since early childhood. At the conclusion of the meeting, all intelligence that had been gathered on Brandon revealed the last thing Sheila or any mother would ever want to hear about their own son. Brandon had all the makings of a mass shooter. Some of the red flags that the FBI may have recognized in Brandon were that he was a loner with feelings of rejection from society, as well as feeling like he was being treated unfairly, and his belief that he was a victim. Other red flags that Brandon showed were his symptoms of depression, homicidal thoughts, violent fantasies, and anger problems. In conjunction with the other warning signs were his traits of narcissism, and most concerning of all, his fixation on past school shootings and mass murderers. Despite the exchange with the FBI agent, Brandon, for a time, seemed to be on the up and up. He found a job in 2020, and he seemed to enjoy working at the local FedEx SmartPost facility. Maybe this was the new beginning Sheila had hoped for after all those...
And that's the most dangerous thing, having hope. I mean, I don't know if you've seen some of the videos with Michael. And I know I keep coming back to Michael. But, you can tell he's using in some of the prior videos that we did. And, I didn't post anything, and I don't really watch him, so I didn't really know. But, you see some progress and you see, I hope he's doing, the right thing now. And it's just heart-wrenching when it goes south.
All those arduous years, maybe Brandon was finally improving. But it wasn't the case. And in fact, he was only just ascending into peak madness. In the months before he would do the unthinkable, Brandon quit showing up for work. It seemed he couldn't bring himself to get out of bed. By October, his stint at the FedEx facility had officially come to an end. It was mid-March of 2021, and Brandon had moved back to his mother's home. Once again, Sheila had to fight the system in order to get her son in front of a mental health professional before he was finally assessed. Multiple pages of notes named a variety of Brandon's conditions, amongst them generalized anxiety disorder, recurrent major depressive disorder. Meanwhile, even while he was in therapy, this is an actual list of the items he was purchasing. As he was making these purchases, he attended another session with a social worker. But by now, Brandon had reached the point of no return. The following day, he attended a session with a different social worker, stating he had no empathy and no care for the lives of others, including his own flesh and blood. 2 weeks later, in what would be his final counseling session, he stated the same thing again. But what he added this time was chilling. Brandon claimed he was a danger to society and that society should fear him.
That is a self-awareness. If you look at some of the interviews with Dahmer, he said, I should never get out of jail because I will just go back to doing this. And we don't have a mechanism set up for this stuff. Should he be civilly committed? And then, he's telling you what he's going to fucking do.
And he was right.
Marion County 911.
There's been a shooting. Okay. Multiple shots. How many shots are fired? A lot.
It started the night Brandon quietly departed home, never to return again, en route to his final destination, the FedEx Smart Post facility, sometime around 11 p.m. on April 15th, 2021. That particular evening was nothing out of the ordinary. Sheila returned home from work with dinner for Brandon and found him to be in a pleasant mood. After he ate, he took a relaxing bath, then they both went to bed. Or, so Sheila thought. Once inside the FedEx Smart Post facility, Brandon makes his way through, savagely opening fire on everyone in his path. Then he moves through the lobby, assassinating employees at random as they attempt to run for their lives. Soon after, he returns to the parking lot and immediately opens fire on those unfortunate enough to be in close proximity. 911 calls flood local dispatchers as Brandon continues his murderous undertaking.
I think there's possibly multiple shooters. I hear them outside. I'm in the control room. There's 3 of us in here. Sorry.
Okay, so what I need for you guys to do, like I said, stay down, make sure your door is locked. Put something against that door if you can to keep yourself safe, okay?
Please. There's no fear.
Okay.
How terrifying. How terrifying. If you look back at that room, with the little ponies and mom thinks about different ways she tried to reach out to her son. And yeah, can we all make mistakes? We all say things and do things in the heat of anger and passion that we wouldn't otherwise, And it's just so heart-wrenching to see a child go down like this.
They're on the way. They're on the way.
In a matter of minutes, the premises transformed into a nightmare.
There's somebody out in the parking lot with a rifle shooting. We got the guy in here. We got him in here. He's been shot.
Okay.
He's in our shack with us.
Hey, stay on the line for me. Let me get medics on the phone. I'm not going to hang up, okay? Stay with me.
There is at least one person down. Send an ambulance or 2, please.
Yeah, we have the ambulance and the officers en route.
But they have an AR-15. I'm not sure how many other guns they have, but I know they at least have 1 assault rifle.
They're still shooting.
Okay, stay on the line.
I'm not a fan of assault rifles. I don't think there's any reason we need to have, 30-round clip, with something that goes through a car door. The Second Amendment, I'm all for it. I'm all for, hunting and home protection and all that. But fuck, it just doesn't take long for them to just spray bullets across a crowd.
They're already on the way to you, okay? But stay on the line with me. Keep yourself safe. I need you to let me know anything that happens, okay?
Right now I just hear a lot of gunshots and a lot of people around.
Okay, hold on. Stay on the line.
The emergency calls continue to pour in as the casualties are mounting. Dispatchers frantically assist callers as the horror continues to unfold.
We have shots fired. We need police. They're still shooting as we speak. He's already shot about 5 people. The shooters in the building.
You said there were 5 people shot there? Or he got...
The first officers are arriving at the scene. Dispatchers and responding officers communicate in real time. However, in the midst of the chaos, details are not yet clear.
And it doesn't matter who this kid is or what he's been through. He's got a gun. He's shooting at people. Guess what? It's time to take him out.
Have we confirmed whether we have 1 or 2 shooters?
Reports are saying 2 shooters. Okay, is it 1 person, 2 person?
Can't tell. Just multiple rifle shots, but it sounds like the same report, so I'm assuming 1.
Okay, are they inside or outside?
Last they were outside.
Okay.
I'm getting information that he is still inside the building from somebody pulling off the lot.
Footage reveals that after carrying out his plan, Brandon returned to an earlier location in the FedEx facility. Without so much as a shred of hesitation, he then proceeded to end one more life, his own. Employees on site continue to place calls, begging and pleading for help in this surreal nightmare that has been sprung upon them without warning.
That is so tragic. And it's all, and what could anybody do? I mean, Mom tried to get him help.
As far as they are aware, the shooter is still preying on victims.
Is there someplace you can get safe? I want you to stay safe, okay?
I don't know because I still hear gunshots.
Okay.
They're inside the building.
Is there someplace?
I had a situation where I had a client who came to my office. A neighbor girl was making some allegations against him. So I take the case, and it was before charging, and we were able to get the prosecutor to not charge it because I said it didn't happen, blah, blah, blah. And I was able to kind of show that it didn't happen. Then he comes to me because he gets met by the FBI, and the FBI is talking to him about this, not insider trading, but antitrust with the big drug companies. So he's in trouble there. So we went and did the grand jury, and then all of a sudden he gets a DUI, and in this case, a major, vice president for a drug manufacturer. Then I get a call. He gets arrested for taking photos of girls at a gymnastics meet, and he had fake press credentials. I mean, he was a VP at a drug company. And he didn't have anybody in the performance. So they let him out, and he's at his home for hours in a gun standoff with the cops because his life was basically over as he saw it. And I was there at his house for 2 hours trying to talk him down, and it didn't work.
You can hide. Is there a desk, something you can get under?
I'm at door 235. There is a trailer on this door. Get under. Slide under that.
Someplace where you can stay safe, okay? Really well, okay? Stay with me, okay?
As Natasha and another employee remain hidden, well over 100 officers are dispatched to the scene.
2 more down, car in parking lot, white Toyota Camry.
When that church shooting happened up the block from my house, there were 100 cop cars sitting in the street, and I couldn't even move.
The Camry.
Another one down by the Silver Explorer front row. Control, advise Eskenazi will have multiple patients. Advise them to be ready.
I'm outside the lobby. I had to get all the people out. He couldn't get through the turnstiles, but he was sticking the gun through. So when he went out to the parking lot, I rushed everybody back through our second set of turnstiles and sent them in the truck.
Is there a certain entrance number or door that we can note here in the run so they know where to get to you?
Why not just turn the gun on yourself when, before it all happens? But you got to cause all that carnage to make a statement or whatever, and then you do what you do.
And how many people are with
get
you?
Through. I can get the cops through. Uh-oh, somebody's at the door out there. Is that a police officer or is it him again? It's a police officer. It's a police officer.
Judy encounters the officers as they make their way through the building to secure the scene. Dispatchers check in with callers who have remained on the lines.
The officers know where you are, okay? I've put that in there, okay? Do you want to stay on the line with me until you get there?
Don't leave me.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm not going to leave you. I will not leave you then, okay? I'm going to stay with you then, okay? You're fine, okay? That's perfectly fine.
After more than 30 minutes with the dispatcher, Natasha's wait is over.
Help! 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 I'm under.
Allegedly, because of the facility's policy that employees couldn't carry cell phones in certain areas, some workers may not have been able to phone for help or contact friends and family during the shooting.
That's going to change.
The killing spree had come to an end, but the aftermath of the attack is difficult to fathom.
So much damage, so much carnage, all for what? For nothing, for absolutely nothing, except for the synapses in this young man's brain are firing, not the way they're supposed to.
Oh my God, he got Osco, and Osco's only been here a week. They're dead out here.
8 innocent, unwitting victims' lives ended abruptly. Soon, Brandon is located by officers as they confirm that he is now deceased. It was then that Brandon's disturbing motive was revealed. Brandon was heartbroken over a My Little Pony character. In his final Facebook post on April 15, 2021, he wrote, "I hope that I can be with Applejack in the afterlife. My life has no meaning without her. If there's no afterlife and she isn't real, then my life never mattered anyway."
That's mental illness. That is just stone cold mental illness. Isn't that just sad? I mean, sure, it's funny to see that somebody might have a My Pony fetish. I mean, who doesn't really? I mean, I do. But to think that, if it's not real, my life doesn't mean anything anyway. Everybody's life means something, no matter who you are.
But I kind of just need to talk to you about what happened that day and how you're feeling about whether you'd want it back or if you...
Oh, sorry to interrupt, but I don't want it back at all. It's fine.
What would be your goal for us to do with the gun?
Just destroy it.
Okay.
Well, yeah, I'd say that. Because I'm not worried about that. I'm worried about getting my life back on track. I don't have any mental health issues that I'm aware of. I don't think I do. And I wouldn't say depressed, but my feelings to the reason why I got a gun is because I wanted to show my best friend who's really into hunting and stuff. Mainly also for the fun of shooting it.
I mean, if you're getting it back on track, I don't know what it's off track of it unless it's just that you didn't get your high school diploma.
Off track. It's bad. I'd say that. Do you think just not doing anything with your life is on track? I don't think.
Well, no, but I also think that could make me sad and depressed if I felt like a failure or whatever. But
I remember thinking as Michael, and I keep relating it back to Michael, so I apologize if you are whatever. But he got kicked out of high school after high school after high school. Ninth grade, he got kicked out because he bought a taser from a kid who was making fun of him because of his mom died. Or that's what I was told anyway. And then he gets kicked out for selling drugs, and then he just doesn't go. So he thought, hey, I'm not going to amount to anything. And so he didn't have any hope until I took him to go get his GED, and he finished his GED in 3 weeks. And I said, you finish this, I can get you into Augsburg College, which I did. And all of a sudden, that hope turned into Dean's List. And so we were so hopeful for so long. And when you hear the kid start talking about, my life doesn't mean anything anyway, it's just that hopelessness. It's just so heart-wrenching.
But apparently that's not what you're feeling, so...
I just signed up for GED. I'm going to get my GED. I'm going to counseling or therapy, or I'm not really sure what the correct term is.
Yeah.
And I'm going to try to get my life back on track. And I'm really trying hard.
And maybe he really was, but isolation and thoughts of, now I think this was 2020. So this had been right when COVID was hitting.
The FBI concluded Brandon's purpose was to demonstrate his masculinity and capability while fulfilling a final desire to experience killing people. It was a moment in time that further reinforced the importance of not only recognizing red flags, but acting upon them too. Those 8 lives that were lost that day ranged in age from 19 years to 74 years, and include Matthew Alexander, Samaria Blackwell, Amarjeet Johal, Jasvinder Kaur, Jaswinder Singh, Amarjeet Sekhan, Carly Smith, and John Weissert.
And then with every one of those people, there's, parents, children, spouses, friends, relatives. So you're not just taking care of one person. It's a wave of shitstorm. It's just so hard.
Brandon's mother wants her son to know that when she cries these days, it's not for him, it's for the victims. If she could talk to him today, she'd say, "I grieve those people more than I ever will you."
I don't. Who would choose to do something like that? You know what I mean? And if you do choose, you've got something wrong with you. Whether it was Michael's mother or Michael, I can sit here and try to find fault with them, right? Or I can try to have some compassion. This kid was fucked up. I mean, he just was. He was absolutely messed up. And you remember the guy who did the shooting in the church in South Carolina? And what did the congregation do there after he killed 8 people? So very similar, but except for he's alive and he's in custody. They forgave him. They had grace. The best laid plans of mice and men often go awry. That's an old saying. I could sit here and be pissed off at Michael's mom for what she did, or pissed off at Michael for what he did, or I can look at it like, I was blessed to be a father to a son and a coach on his teams, and he'd made some decisions I just wish he wouldn't have made. But you're going to drive yourself crazy if you're just always in that deep, dark hole of despair. Why do you think I bought a new motorcycle? You still got to live, and I can't imagine every single reaction that he had with his mother or interaction that he had with his mother was all negative. They had some good times too. But clearly disturbed. Should he have been on medication? I don't know. But it just, my heart goes out to that mother. And and to the families whose lives he just absolutely devastated. The minute he got some firearms, I would have gone over there and taken them from him. But the red flag laws don't cover everything. And if you're smart, which this kid was smart, you can fake it till you make it. And there's no good way to keep a gun out of the hands of somebody who really, really wants a gun. They're going to find one. So sorry this isn't a fun-filled ending to this episode, but it is nevertheless food for thought, because we experience these mass shootings way too often. We have too many guns in this culture and not enough hugs. Not enough hugs. We need more hugs. Thought I'd give you a little smile there towards the end. Anyway, we'll see you next time here at Criminal Lawyer Reacts. Make sure you subscribe. Follow us on Instagram. Follow us on Twitter. Sign up for Patreon. Go to CLR Bruce Rivers for all your merch needs. And we'll see you next time here on Criminal Lawyer Reacts. Don't forget to click the link below. This is a special deal that CyberGhost is giving to our subscribers. Nobody else. And this application will protect your data and allow you to scroll and no matter where you are for only $2.03 a month, and give you full access to all blocked content. So go to CyberGhostVPN. It's our sponsor for this episode. So go for it.
He know all the charges that you about to face. You ain't coming home till 2058. That self-snitching gon' get you put away. Bruce Rivers just broke down your case. He know all the
charges that you about to face. You ain't coming home till 2058. That self-snitching gon' get you put away.
23-hour lockdown, please, is at my